And if I unmute, check, check, check. Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
One 1:45 p.m.
Checky, checky, checky. Double check. It's weird. Sorry, guys. I think the feedback loop will stop being a problem in just a second. Check, check, check. Feedback stop being a problem. Yes. There we go. Check, check, check. Yeah. There we go. Give me just a little something. Check, check, check. My Streamlabs. I mute that. Nice. Okay, it's all configured now. There we go. All right. I think it all makes sense now. 75% here on my download. If you've just tuned in, what's good? Say hello in the chat and it'll come up on the screen. I think you got a chat on Twitch, Twitch. Just tuned in. What's good? Say hello in the chat. They make me log in here too, huh? Twitch. Okay, so I had an echo loop going on that should be gone now. I just had to reconfigure everything because I haven't had this setup going in like a year, but we'll be good. Gonna go live in about, what time we got? 1:50. At 2 o'clock, I'm going to start streaming, so feel free to grab yourself a drink, pull up a chair, full screen that bish, and share the stream if you want anybody else to pick up some cool new tricks for AI. Soundtrack by the Flashbulb. Why are you being so slow? There we go. Now you can see what song's playing. How do you feel about that? I gotta make a little playlist. Hopefully I don't get canceled out for having music playing very quietly in my stream. Oh, all these login things. Now they're making me verify my login code. I'm also live on YouTube, but I suggest you go to the Twitch if you want all the perks. 297314. Twitchy. Twitchy, twitchy. Okay, there you go. Now if you hop in that chat, should be good. Gonna move this to the side. Yep. Smoke a bowl, get ready for some fun. I'm gonna share this link in a few places. I don't know why that was friends only. That's weird. Should be good now. Now I can share it. live streaming for like an hour. Like live streaming till I gotta go. After I leave, we'll pick them up. What'd you say? Okay, so a little before. Which class is gymnastics for her? Okay, come. You can bother me at any point if you need.
Two p.m.
Check, check, check. Okay. I think we are ready to go here. Hey, what's up, everybody? Let me just silence the old music here, because the last stream I did, the music just kept going, and it wasn't a good look. Let's pause that. Oh. All right. How y'all doing out there in the internet world? I am Mike Flex. If you're not already familiar, you probably are. That's probably why you're watching this. Feel free to share the stream. That'd be great to just get it out there, get some more eyeballs on the old chat, share it in a group or on your wall, or tweet it, whatever you want to do. So yeah, I'm gonna spend about an hour, maybe a little more than that, describing the differences between Stable Diffusion GUIs that are out there, the different options that you have, and how you can get into it really quickly. And if you do have a powerful GPU at home, something in the at least in the maybe 2060 to 2080 series, if not the 3000 series, that's pretty much where you're going to want to be if you're running this stuff locally. But that being said, you can run it all right through your web browser running Google Colab. There are limitations, especially in terms of like volume and speed, and some of the technical stuff can be a little annoying. But that being said, if you do not have enough money to be scraping together, you can just run this stuff on your phone and still have a lot of fun. There's also subscription models for the company that created it and a couple of other ones out there. If you're familiar with all of the various apps, almost all of them have integrated Stable Diffusion on some level or another. Either they let you choose it, or it's integrated in some way into their existing service that you may already have a subscription for. But so just to start things off right, we're going to talk about Visions of Chaos. I'm currently looking at a GitHub page for Stable Diffusion Web UI, which is a Gradio.app wrapper for the machine learning code that runs Stable Diffusion. So they created an interface that has sliders and fields and checkboxes. That way you don't have to type all these things manually. I should probably silence that, huh? Hold on. Sorry, everybody. Gonna exit that. Okay, that was my talking desktop clock, and I have a owl that goes off every 5 minutes to keep me organized and on time when I'm working on projects. But that's not good for a live stream. Anyway, Visions of Chaos is a GUI wrapper for mathematical formulas, and I got into it probably 15 years ago, just when I was diving into various freeware fractal software, just to make, starting with 2D fractals, honestly, flame fractals, and I believe it's Apophysis was a really popular one at the time. I basically looked into every different existing fractal software. I came across Visions of Chaos, and it's really interesting that this one fractal software eventually added machine learning into it with a little instruction on his website, which I'm going to show you, and he made it a wrapper for various things. And if you join the Discord, you'll see there's quite a lot of activity in terms of communicating to the developer that there are new releases for this, that, and the other thing. And if you show him to him and he can find a way to integrate it into his free software, he does that. I highly suggest supporting him via his Patreon. The name of the company is Softology. That's the name of his Patreon as well, patreon.com/Softology. Super, super cheap. It's like $5 or something like that to support him. You can choose a higher tier and you can donate, obviously. And every bit helps because it is one guy that is working his butt off continuously to just update and update. So this most recent addition to the software went live very, very recently. You're talking within like 24 hours ago. He released a freeware non-patron beta version of this thing that we're looking at here inside of Visions of Chaos, which means you can run it on your own PC. So just real quick, I'll go down here and you can go to the collab. Apparently there are two of them now. Okay, they replaced the old one and now there's a new one maintained by Akaibu. So if you go to this collab maintained by Akaibu, it's going to open up a Google Colab page, and I'm not going to spend my time telling you how to run a Google Colab, but if you want the easy way, just go to runtime here and hit run all. It'll automatically click all of these play buttons in order And when one of them's done, it'll move on to the next one until it goes down to the bottom, and then it'll pop up a new web browser window that'll allow you to access the interface. That's the way that you run this version of machine learning AI to create images. So as you guys may know, there is DALL-E 2 and Midjourney and all of these kind of commercial closed source packages. And this company, Stability.ai, which is led by this gentleman, Emad, he founded this company with his own money. He also founded a nonprofit organization named Leon and basically created this secondary entity that then they funneled money into that scraped the internet with this thing called Common Crawl here, commoncrawl.org, and it just basically went to every single website on the internet and pulled off every single image that it was legally able to take. So that's an interesting point to the people that are complaining about that their copyrighted stuff was stolen. Some people might be confused as to how that's possible if everything that it scraped was public. Well, they've said that certain stuff that may be completely private and never posted online, somebody like took a picture with their phone of it and posted it to Pinterest or something like that. So Pinterest or one of these random file upload sites that doesn't have the kind of security that would keep a Common Crawl from taking its images, you can actually usually put on your website this thing called no robots.txt, and when a spider crawler goes by your website, it sees that and it says, okay, fine, I won't. It's like you having a no soliciting sign or something on your business. It basically stops something like Common Crawl from grabbing your stuff because it knows that you don't want it to take it. But so that means that every single thing that was able to be taken by this company, Leon here, they have larger and larger and larger databases that they're gathering, and they basically just pay some amount of money to a server to just do its Common Crawl thing or whatever, however that works. I don't know the process. Not going to pretend to know. And they gather all of the images that have alt text, and there was 5 billion, I believe, in the first set, and then they basically scaled it down from there and removed duplicates and things along that nature, filtered for not safe for work and illegal things and things along that nature. But the interesting thing about this open source one versus DALL-E 2 and Midjourney is they did not pre-censor anything. There is a filter on it that you can turn off, and it's actually a checkbox in the web UI there. So I won't go too much further into this, but you can see they have a bunch of sub entities that serve a bunch of different purposes. One of them being Dream Studio, which is their own web-based front end for their Discord bot that people were using in the beta, myself included. And honestly, there's almost no features on it. It's very, very bare bones, and they do want you to pay something along the lines of like a minimum of 10 a month to get a certain amount of credits. And I personally just run it locally using the method that I'm going to be showing you guys. So Dream Studio is like all right, and they're going to be adding literally like 1,000 features to it. They did a little preview on Twitter that you can find that has like audio features and a node-based network where you can run models into one another and create a whole pipeline. So it's going to be very, very crazy and super cool and advanced. But what they have out there right now is called Dream Studio Lite or Dream Studio Beta or whatever it is. And it's got almost nothing going for it. I wouldn't even really suggest using it if you want to understand the power of this free open source model. A lot of the other communities, specifically this automatic 1111 here, go back, leave. This has 66 people, so 68 as of today. It was 66 yesterday. 68 contributors to the project, which means that there's just a ton of people all contributing and adding new features and making sure that things aren't breaking and blah, blah, blah. So almost every day there's a new feature, and the list is very long of the really cool things that it can do, and I'm going to show you some of those. So Softology is softology.pro is the website that you go to. Click on software. My computer is also streaming, so the web's going to be a little slow here. So Visions of Chaos here. And if you click up at the top where it says click here, it'll just jump you down the page and you're on the download part. And if you want to view the revision history, you can see all the different changes he's made, which are crazy. And he adds a lot of stuff all the time. So just take a look at that and you'll have an idea of how feverishly this guy updates this program. But you click here to download the program. It'll download the most recent version, which is listed here. And then you're going to install it and go through a very lengthy process. So that lengthy process is actually down here, machine learning support. You have to do this whole thing. If you don't do this, then it's not going to work for you. So you click on this little blue word steps here, and it's going to bring you to, please read the bold. I'm not going to parrot any of this stuff to you. This is all very, very important stuff. Don't waste anybody's time not reading this stuff. So what you're going to want to do is follow this entire thing in order, very slowly, to the letter. Do not skip anything, and you will have it work swimmingly. If you miss something and it seems like it's not working, it's because you missed a step. So slow the F down. Start from the very beginning, be very slow, and do one thing at a time, and make sure you read every single thing it says and don't skip over anything. Okay, now that you know that, you are able to install Visions of Chaos, which I'm going to close this up, stop that, close it. So this is what you're going to see when you open Visions of Chaos, and it's like, what? Like, what? What is this for? So if you go into the mode, he has all these different really cool things, but right here, machine learning, this won't even appear if you have not done all of these different things. And then also in the options here, there's this machine learning tab that you have to go through this whole process to make sure that it can get to this point where it says machine learning modes are enabled. Once they are enabled, you can choose here in the, maybe not there. Okay, he took it away. The ability to choose which graphics card it's using. I don't know why it's not letting you do that right now. That's fine, not a problem. Anyway, if you go in machine learning here, you can see there are a ton of sub menus, and each of these are wrappers for like a Google Colab. Like every individual one of them is its own Google Colab that's all wrapped up. So there are a ton of them, and they do tons of different things. So in the image generation one, that's where we're most focused. Stable Diffusion Web UI. Once you run that, it opens up this little sub console window, which is going to run a virtualized Python environment and show you all of the console output here. So it's super, super useful. And you will use these command line arguments, which there is, did it somewhere in here? Yeah. You have all these arguments in the Run with Custom Parameters page for the Stable Diffusion Web UI. There are command line arguments, and if you use any of these things in that little field on Visions of Chaos, you will be able to adjust a lot of hidden stuff. And usually we do all this stuff via just the command line. He basically makes it so he exposes just the goods for you. And you can type in those things here, and share and listen allow you to access these either from, say, your phone, or like create a web link that you can go to from another computer and password protect and all types of cool stuff. So if you just hit start, it's going to create a virtualized environment. It's going to take a second, and it's going to launch a web page as soon as it's done. So it goes through a maybe, who knows, I can't imagine it's more than 30 seconds. And these things all used to take a lot longer to do. Like even the image generation used to take, say, 5, 10, 12 minutes or more for one image. Now we're able to generate like 9 images in 7 seconds. It's so absurdly fast now that those of us that are doing it a lot are obviously impatient when things take more than 20 seconds, 30 seconds, but this is totally normal. So it loaded up, it's done. That did take about 30 seconds. And here we are. And this is the Stable Diffusion Web UI Automatic 1111 interface hosted via Visions of Chaos installed on my computer. So that means it's using my video card and my computer as the hosting. And the cool part about this versus the other version, if I go real quick into here, machine learning, image generation, you can see that there's a text to image down here, and this is actually where the vanilla version of Stable Diffusion is, as well as Disco Diffusion, as well as Latent Majesty Diffusion, and all these other precursors to where we're at today. So don't sleep on on that, but I won't spend any time on it today. So Stable Diffusion Web UI is how I popped open this thing. And now we've got this boy, and really cool stuff. You've got the ability to put in your prompt as usual. You've got the ability to put in a negative prompt, which will remove things that you don't want to appear. This is a really cool feature. The role feature will automatically add in random artist names, and by them being super random, you can get these cool hybrid styles that you never would otherwise without plopping that in. But if it's like, well, where are all these names coming from? Over in the settings tab here, there is a large list of allowed categories for random artist selection when using the role button. So by default, it's using all of these, and each one of these categories probably has a list of like 1,000 anime artists, 1,000 black and white artists, right? So it's pulling from everything at random. But if you check just one or two, like anime and cartoon, it'll only roll in anime and cartoon names. So really cool that you can customize the random factor a little bit and make it so it's only giving you the kind of stuff that you want to be looking at. So I'm not going to spend any time explaining any of these settings, because there's a million, but I'll pop back in here every now and then to show you some stuff. So we got the positive prompt, we got the negative prompt. Once you've typed in something, you have the ability to save it if you say create style and you name it something. And now here you have the ability to pull up that prompt anytime you want, and you also have the ability to use it as a negative prompt, which is really cool. So the sampling steps, I'm not going to explain any of the diffusion model settings for you, because again, that's not what this is about. I'm going to show you some of the cool existing stuff, not necessarily how to use it. There are plenty of guides out there, YouTube videos, you name it. So 20 steps, Euler A by default is really solid. No need to fuck with that. Restoring faces is actually reliant on whether or not you want it to use a certain model. So there's a GFPGAN model that basically to me looks like just faces plastered on top of the image. And there's also CodeFormer, and CodeFormer is a little more painterly and, in my opinion, realistic with the way that it does it, especially in the eye area, and it just doesn't look quite as like bad composite. So you would have to go into settings, and you would have to go to where that selection is right here, face restoration, and you have to choose whether or not you want CodeFormer or GFPGAN. So the CodeFormer would be the one I would go for, and there's usually when using save, no, somewhere it says that you can basically save the image before it does this restoration. Save a copy of image before doing face restoration. They need to move this down here. That's kind of ridiculous that it's still up there. But they're trying their best, and I bet by tomorrow that will be down there, just because there's 68 people on the project right now. Anyway, back to it. The tiling feature is amazing. Absolutely everybody that's using it is loving it. Why wouldn't you? You can make textiles and textures and anything that you would want tiling. There's this high-res fix, which basically renders something. Anything over 512 is going to have doubling, like motifs, as they call them. So if you were to say make the width 1024, there would be like two copies of the prompt, like in the one image. You would have like two people instead of one or whatever. So if you do high res fix, it'll do 512 by 512 and then upscale that, or it would make it like 512 by 256. It would render that out, and then it runs it through a Stable Diffusion upscale after the fact. So pretty cool little checkbox to be able to turn on. And then the denoising strength is going to determine how much it keeps the original image. So if that's very low, then it's going to be as closer to the original image with a small amount of variation. And if it's up here, it's not really going to look like the same image after it goes through that process. So be careful and usually pull the denoising strength at least below 0.5. Usually I go with like 0.33 or whatever. That's usually good for me. And scale latent will run it through latent majesty diffusion. I'm pretty sure that's what that's about. So you can get extra details on stuff, and it'll dream in some extra shit if you choose that one. So kind of cool. Batch count, if you crank that, it'll just run through a ton of them, and if you crank that, it'll do that many times in a row. So really cool stuff, and it runs super fast because it's staying in RAM the whole time. So when you're running this locally and you're running Stable Diffusion Web UI, the generate button is basically sitting there waiting ready to go the entire time. The second you click it, it starts rendering and immediately, which is a problem with the built-in one here in Text to Image and Visions of Chaos, because that one needs to spin up and be put into your RAM every time before you generate any image, be it a batch of 100 or be it one. So it can be a little obnoxious when you're doing a very long session to have to like wait and then it renders it, and then wait and then it renders it. And that, this has completely solved that for us by staying in the Python environment, keeping it loaded into RAM the entire time that you have the console running. And there is a stop button. As soon as I hit stop, it won't be in RAM anymore, and I'll have to start it again. But pretty cool that they give you that feature. So width and height, we obviously know what that's about. Seed stuff is cool. If you click the extra button, you get some ability to vary your seed, which is really interesting. I have not explored that too much. And then down here at the bottom, this is a way to extend the entire thing. So there's extra scripts, one of them being the XY plot. You've definitely seen pictures of these things, like showing you what a CFG scale does. So you can actually choose CFG scale and steps and put in like 10, 20, 30 or whatever, and then in CFG scale do like 5, 10, 15, and you'll have a 3x3 grid of 9 images, and it'll have if you leave draw legend on checked, it will put in the words and everything, and you can customize what font it uses over in the settings, just as a fun little thing. There is a field somewhere here. Directory name, image file name, saving, upscaling, paths for saving. Font for image grids that have text. Boom. So you can, I don't know what you're supposed to put in there, what you're supposed to type in specifically. I'll look into it. But after you choose anything that you do in here, I haven't said this yet, you have to hit apply settings or it doesn't do it. So boop, 2 settings changed. That's pretty cool, right? So we're all done with this. There's also a prompt matrix. You can load prompts from a file or a text box. Boom. Let's go over into the image to image tab. So if I generate something like robot grandma on a flying skateboard Pixar movie, right? Let's give it a shot. And we'll make it so it's 512 by 1024. It'll double the grandma if I do that, so I'm going to have to do a high-res fix and keep it fairly low, right? And do a batch count 3, because why not? And I feel good about it. 20, blah, blah, blah. That's all good. Just render one of those. Style none. Style none. Generate. So you'll see as soon as I hit generate over here, this boy starts going, and it'll actually show you a more granular version of what's going on right here. But this is really nice to have. Previously, we didn't even really have this sort of thing, so it's nice. And there it is, 100%, and then it takes about 1.5 seconds to plop them in. There is a grid-based version of it. If you click on it, it creates a slideshow, which is really cool. And just for funs, especially if you did choose the seamless one, if you choose tiling here, when you're viewing it, you can hit this little square button up here, and it'll tile the thing. So really, really cool. So here we have these really freaky situations. I don't even see any skateboards going on. It tried its best. It didn't do a great job. And you can see that I didn't really type in a fantastic prompt, and I didn't separate things, and I didn't weight things. One thing about Stable Diffusion Web UI that's really cool is you actually can do, like if I wanted to focus on grandma more, I could put it in parentheses like this, robot grandma on a flying skateboard, right? And then if I wanted to do something less, I could put it in brackets. And this is considered weighting, which means it'll basically it's weighting it more or less towards these things. So I'll run this one more time, but I'm going to turn off the high-res fix and just leave it on like that. It'll actually probably run faster if I do that. And now you see it's flying right through. It's really cool because it tells you how long the last one took down here. Really nice to have that just come up and be on the screen. So, boop, crazy shit. What's going on here? So you can see the doubling that occurs, and in this case it's tripling because of just how much higher it is. I probably could have done like 640. Let's do it this way. Oh, I could have done poster. That's part of it. I was looking for it to make a poster and it wasn't doing it because I wasn't typing it. So look how absolutely fast that is. Takes 7 seconds to pump those boys out. And yeah, grandma, what up, girl? She's got like one on each foot. Now she's like digging it. I don't know. That don't look like no grandma to me. So, robot grandma on a flying skateboard. Pixar. So it's usually best to separate things out. How about forget the robot part? Grandma on a flying skateboard. How about flying talking skateboard? Pixar movie poster. Take that 7 seconds. Take a nice deep breath. See what it comes up with. Boom. Now she's got one in each hand. Grandma, it says down at the bottom. Nice. Love it when it throws some text in there. Here we go. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah. Cool, grandma. Getting vertical. So now that we've got an image here, this is why I was doing prompting. Now I'm going to send this over to the next tab. I'm going to hit send to image to image. So this is really interesting. You can load in your own images and you could load in any other image, but the interrogate here will run it through what's called a clip model, and clip will reconstruct the prompt from the existing image and put it into the prompt field as it says when I'm hovering. So in case you guys forget what any of this stuff does, just hover over and there's a tooltip that comes up. So if I do interrogate, it's going to look at this image that we generated and it's going to try and come up with what the AI sees when it looks at an image. Instead of the prompt that I typed in, it's going to see what it sees, and we're going to basically see how close clip is to what I typed in. A cartoon character is balancing on a skateboard in the air with a skateboard in the air behind her by Pixar car concept artist. So it did a really good job knowing that it was Pixar. It also specifically accounted for the fact that there's a doubling in the image, and it made sure that that was part of the prompt. That's really hilarious. But so if I wanted to get rid of that part, balancing on a skateboard in the air, let's just get that out of there, right? So now we've got a prompt that Clip is familiar with, and the more that you do these interrogations, especially on like your own stuff or like people's art that you like or whatever, you'll get such a better idea as to what sort of things you should be doing. And the people that are hiding their prompts, like, guess what? Run it through interrogate. You already got their prompt, or at least something similar enough to be able to get the next run to be within that range. So as you can see, there's no hiding with this. Everything's open for everyone, and I think that's a really great point of this. That's why I'm sharing it. That's why I'm letting everybody know what's going on with it, because we've all got the power now, thanks to Mr. Emad and team and Kali Yuga. And I could probably name drop a lot of people right now, but they have all contributed to what we are all able to do at home now. So the tools inside of image to image are really powerful. You can, now that I did this and I have this here, I can run it through again, run my image through the process again, and with the denoising strength, this is the most important slider on any of these things. If it comes up at all, it's the most important thing on the whole page. Because if it's down here, it's not going to change her much, but it'll change her a little bit, and it'll create what we consider variations of this image. So I won't explain to you verbatim what you can do with that, but just let your imagination run wild. The denoising strength here is at about 1/3, so it'll keep 2/3 of the image and change about 1/3 of it. I think that that's a pretty fair amount to keep something looking like what we have and getting some variations of it. So I've removed the skateboard in the air behind her, And hopefully by me running that through and showing it this, it'll get rid of those. If I wanted to get rid of them myself, I could simply go to the inpainting here and I could go in and just manually remove that. So we'll give that a shot in a second as well. If I go to text to image and just say send to inpaint, it's also here. And just for fun, I'm going to show you how easy it is to just boop. And you can choose what you want it to do in that hole. You can do fill with the fill, original, latent noise, latent nothing. It does some really crazy shit. So I just leave it on fill. I believe that's it. And paint it full resolution. Just resize, Euler array. Whether or not you want it. That's incredible that you have the ability to add tiling within a small area of something. But some extra fun stuff. I won't explain that right now. And then let's just run this girl. Run it. So that resized it because crop and resize would probably be needed. Resize and fill. Oh. If I do just resize, I would have to do the same. I think it was like 768, right? Whoa. I didn't know we could see that. Too bad the whole thing's so far away I can't notice it. There we go. That's interesting. So I did control minus to be able to have that happen. So I'm going to run it one more time at the exact size that it should be. And I'm going to actually run a bunch of them. Do 6 of them. Oh, I should have erased the bottom. I guess 1 at a time is fine. I don't know why I did 6. That's hilarious. It'll give you a bunch of variations of what it's going to put in that spot, so you can see that some of them fit better than others, and it's actually worth doing a batch in that case because it looks like some of them suck. Like that one's pretty good. So then I say send to inpaint, and now it plops it back in there, and I can go in here again and send it through again. And I'm the dummy that did 6, but again, it's so fast that it's not that bad. 7 seconds. So it's about 1 second per variation, and they all look pretty aight. It's not bad. So now I could say send to image, right? Because I got those parts we didn't like out of it. And now I can generate those variations, and the variations are going to come from this prompt with the denoising amount. And if I just turn on the batch count, hit generate, take another 7 seconds or so. Hey, how are you? Thanks for tuning in, y'all. See, there's some new peeps in the chat. So now we have these horrible variations, and sometimes things get better, sometimes things get worse. In this case, it looks like it probably got worse. Come on now. All these different ladies. So you can see that we have various old ladies now, and they're all pretty cute. But they all have different expressions. They all have different features to them. The shoes are different. The skateboard wheels are different. The clouds are different. And it's really nice to be able to see those changes happen. And this is when it's actually useful to start using those XY plots because you can change the denoising amount, I believe. Let's see if we can. XY plot. Is there a denoising? Yeah. So you can change the denoising scale here and do, 0.33, comma, 0.5, 0.5, comma, 0.75, 0.75, right? And then for steps, you would do like 20, 50, 30, 50, right? So by setting it up like that, let's just run it through because why not? Draw the legend, and then I'm going to hit generate. And this won't take very long. It'll probably take about, I would guesstimate, somewhere in the realm of 30 seconds, maybe a little bit more than that. So feel free to grab yourself a drink. It'll be done in just a moment. If you guys like this stuff, feel free to go check out my Patreon. It's been scrolling by underneath me the whole time. My Gumroad If you're not watching on Twitch, feel free to sign in on Twitch. That's where I can see what you're saying a lot more clearly, and it'll come up on the screen here. And of course, if you guys have any questions about this stuff, let me know. If you want to say hey, say hey. It's nice to know that I'm talking to somebody and not nobody, you know? So we're about halfway done. So maybe that's closer to a minute because it's doing 9 images, and it's doing them at a higher step count on the end. I have some of them being 50 steps, so that will make it roughly 2.5 times as long to render than the ones with 20 steps. That one, we're gonna find out. Yeah. So this will be done in about 10 seconds or so. Just setting up my stream deck. I got almost everything mutable, like, offhand. Cool. 92. Crawling now, because this is the 50 steps that I did down here. So 512 by 640 is over 512 by 512 plus 50 steps. Doing it a couple times. And then after it finishes at 100%, takes about 3 to 5 seconds. And then it'll populate here in the window. Sometimes it seems like nothing's happening. And if it seems like nothing's happening, just go look in the Visions of Chaos console. And it's always going to tell you that something's going on. Also, Control Shift Escape. You can view your tasks here, and you'll usually see some disk and network movement in most cases. So, holy crap, I did way more than 9, didn't I? What did I do here? 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3. But I also had the batch count. That's the problem. I had the batch count up. It should have been on 1. So that makes sense why it took absolutely way longer than necessary. So it's very, very large, this image that I'm opening right now. And I've noticed that the built-in slideshow viewer doesn't do a fantastic job of opening very, very large images. It actually seems to like completely lag and get stuck. So what I can do here, there we go. I'll have to hit this button to zoom in, right? So now we have, with 20 steps, what a batch of 6 would look like. What a batch of 6 would look like. What a batch of 6 would look like. And you can see that the ones where the denoising is much higher, we get a completely different character. It's just literally not the same dude at all. And the steps seem to change quite a bit, right? So this one, you kind of get more detail in it, the more steps you add, but it also changes the face. Once you go to 50, I felt it was important to show you guys this, that the steps really, especially with Euler A, completely control the aesthetic and can completely change the output, just depending. I mean, it's not every seed. You can see actually that some of these don't seem to change a lot between, but look at 20's face and look at 50's face. Look at 20's face. Look at 50's face. So 50 gets amazing with Euler A, but that being said, sometimes you get incredible results with 20, and like the in-between doesn't have too much of variation. Sometimes it gets like just stuck in the middle, but I just really think that 20 and 50 are great defaults to check out for almost any prompt. And you can see that if you're doing a variation, that the denoising amount is going to completely affect what it's doing when you run it through that step. So if I hop back, get out of here, we're still in the same window. And if I go down to where the XY plot script selection is, there's this thing called loopback. And if you choose loopback, you can actually just have it feed one image back into the system an X amount of times. So you know how I took my image, interrogated it, ran it through. You can have it do that automatically multiple times in a row if you choose this thing called loopback. And you can see here how many loops it's going to be. And then you can see the denoising strength change factor. So really, really cool that you can choose between 0.9 and 1.1 apparently. And if you want to change any of the ranges that are available for this, you just go look in the Python that launches this, and you can change all of that. I think it's in the options. Yeah, the options that get loaded from, I believe, shared.py. That's a little trick for anyone that knows Python or wants to fuck around in this. So anyway, the in-painting feature is really cool because you have in-paint at full resolution. You can do resizing and filling the extra spaces. You can crop and resize. You can in-paint the masked area or in-paint the non-masked area. You can upload a mask instead of drawing one if you have a pre-done mask that you did in Photoshop or something and you don't want to have to use their tool. And their tool is not terrible because it actually has like a smoothing, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't feel like it's doing it right now. Maybe I'm wrong. But at least one of the times I was using one of these drawing tools that they have, it's got a little bit of the trying to remember what it's called, but there's like a tail that follows it when you pull it along. So I can in-paint her out of it and get a really nice, pretty clouded sky. But I would have to do a batch because the first time it does it, it might just look like a bad Photoshop job. And yeah, I really think batching your in-painting is a great way to go about it. So batching image to image, I've not messed around with that tab at all, so I don't know about it. The extras tab here allows you to do upscaling, and if you want, you can do 2 upscales in a row. The Lanczos, I haven't looked into that one, but it's basically the vanilla fast, super fast version that might be just fine for your image. And the real Ezergan 4X Plus is the one that I've used the most and I tend to use. Here's one that's got plus anime 6B, so I'm not entirely sure, but the B's usually stand for billion, so maybe it was trained on 6 billion anime images or something like that. So if you've got cartoon stuff that you're upscaling, I would upscale it with this. If you've got photos that you're upscaling or photo more painterly stuff or whatever, you'd probably go for that. This is like probably like stuff with line art and bold lines and illustrations and that kind of stuff. The LDSR uses latent diffusion to do what's called super resolution. So that just means latent diffusion super resolution. It's like an extra 2 GB file that it's got to download when you click and use that, but it will add new features to whatever it's upscaling. It's like a smart upscaler that is its own diffusion model, and it's very good. Before I was using Stable Diffusion, while everybody was on the Disco Diffusion tip, I like Disco Diffusion, but it was pretty annoying to get. Like almost everything that I was getting out of it kind of had a similar vibe, and when I started to use latent Majesty Diffusion, I started to see a lot of really cool results. And then very quickly, Stable Diffusion came along and just kicked everything out of the way. It's really nice to have latent diffusion in here as an upscaler, because then you can get really fine detail out of some of these things that they look pretty good, but that you need more detail. So you don't just want an upscaled version of it that's just doing its best to approximate an upscale. You want something that's actually like thinking about what's there and trying to add details to it. So that's, again, amazing that that's in there. And you can control the visibility, I guess, as a percentage of a second upscaler. I don't know what's going on with this whole business, but it's just fucking amazing. Maybe you could do none on the one and just do one here and set the visibility. It must be like an opacity between the two or something. I'm going to have to read up on that one. That's interesting. The fact that you can set the visibility of the face restoration is really cool. I don't know if they're both on by default or if when you turn them on in here, I'm assuming you turn on this one here, that when you do an upscale, it's already using this as part of the upscale. So when you're in the extras tab, you have the ability to control. If it's on 0, it's like 100%, I believe, I would think, right? Right? 0 is maximum effect, 1 is minimum effect. Is that the same for the visibility? I'm like so confused, and that's so backwards. And so as you guys can see, there's a lot of like adjustments they need to make to this over time. And they're doing it. So batch processing. I haven't looked into that, but obviously it seems like you can probably drop a whole bunch of files in there and have it just run upscales on every single one of them in a folder, for example. PNG info. I've not done that yet, but we'll see what we get out of it. And that's pretty much it for this. Pour through all this stuff on your own and look through the documentation. Definitely really, really cool to have this inside of Visions of Chaos. But if you can't get Visions of Chaos running, if it's too annoying, you're not able to figure it out, first I would suggest joining the Discord and asking for help, because there's a small army of people, including myself, that are happy to help people get this stuff working. And if you can't get it working even after that, or you just don't want to do that whole process, you can just run it right out of the collab. So the two other things I wanted to mention before I ski-daddle are that there are multiple wrappers for Stable Diffusion inside of popular software that we're using already. So one of them is Photoshop, and that is coming from this guy here, christiancantrell.com, and his AI ML tab. There is a Stable Diffusion Photoshop plugin. I have it installed right now, but I don't have an active Stability.ai Dream Studio account. And when I went to go and run it, it says, hey, you don't have any credits. So you can only benefit from this particular plugin at the moment if you already have access to an API key, which you pay for, to Stability.ai. It'd be really great if this guy makes it so you can run this locally without having to use the credits. Just run it off the GPU. It can't be that hard, right? Anyway, really, really cool that that does exist. And is it open? Yeah, I can show you guys. So I've got the generate tab here. It's got a link to learn the basics of prompt engineering. That's kind of cute. Got some limited choices here for the width and the height. Config scale up to 20, but with steps of 1 with no control in between. Steps here, increments of 1. And number of images up to 9 total at once, using any of these samplers. And I'm sure that he's going to keep updating this and adding to the interface. I would assume so. Your ability to use a seed. And then the interesting thing is, say I crank this to 150 and I say I want to do 9 images, 150 steps, and I hit Dream. It's going to calculate for me how much that would cost for me to do that. So it looks like it would cost me 2.5 cents, just almost 3 cents, to run 9 images at 150 steps within Photoshop's implementation, but that's because it's Dream Studio's cost, and that's how much Dream Studio is charging, right? You have $0 in active grants, $0 in balance in my account that I'm signed in. That account is the API key here. I just went and got it from the Dream Studio beta membership tab and copied and pasted it into here, and then you have the ability to basically use your account remotely through Photoshop. So kind of cool, but also kind of just limited because you can only use their pay version of a completely free thing. So the one other thing I wanted to showcase is that here inside of Blender, we've got this one called Dream Textures, and that's coming from this guy here, Carson Cutry. Dream-Textures on GitHub is a Blender implementation that also has the ability to have tiling or non-tiling textures, and it generates it fully within a Python environment that it loads like a virtual Python environment in the background. So pretty cool. And yeah, read through the page so you know all the functions. But once you install it, and if you're not familiar with Blender, you just go into Edit, Preferences, you install, you browse to where the zip is. Once it is installed, you hit the checkbox to enable it. There'll be some settings inside of it here, and you'll see that you have to install dependencies. You need to set up the model weights. You need to restart Blender, and then you need to validate your installation. And once you do those things in that order, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you will have this little button that comes up for you, but it only comes up in the shader editor, Shift F3. And when you open up Shift F3, then you click on Dream Texture, and you have the ability to go to Dream Texture here, and it just pops open a little hover window that lets you type in whatever you want, and it the presets here, texture, photography, concept art, it'll just add that word after whatever you typed. That's all it's doing there. So you can, I believe you can have presets here. I don't know what's going on. The configuration, you can have a lot more range as to what you're choosing there. The checkbox for seamless is amazing because that's, again, you immediately can get a brand new unique texture right inside of Blender. It's just absurd that this exists, and this is free. You don't need to pay. Like, that's why the Photoshop thing is annoying. This is just running Python off of your computer. So the init image is great. You can feed it an image that it'll use, and you set the strength of how much of it to use. Pretty cool. So that's the image-to-image thing in Stable Diffusion Web AI. And advanced configuration, you can turn on precision amount, set your seed, set your steps, set your config scale, set your sampler, and you can show the steps. I don't know what that's all about. But once you've typed in what you want, you just hit OK. And then it goes off and it starts doing its thing. And it's not really telling you it's doing its thing, but you just have to like wait and wait and wait, and at some point it just plops in what it made for you. You have to go and get a paid Blender plugin. I hope they either add this into Blender entirely or make a free alternative of something that shows you the thumbnail above it of what it is, because it's super obnoxious to have it give you an image and you can't see that image yet until you plug it into something else. Or you could maybe do a image editor, is it, that I have to use? Is it in here? Okay, so that was one I made before. Yeah, you got to come in here to view it. The one I just made, I think, is this one. Yeah. So it made me corrugated cardboard, and it made it very, very wide because I obviously cranked the resolution in the generator. But that's super, super cool. And then you can run it through various hue saturation filters and normal filters and stuff and get all these secondary channels out of it. But just to have it uniquely in the program and be fully seamless, and you can type in all types of wonderful stuff and just get some really, really great stuff. So yeah, that's it. So shader editor is it. And then if you don't have the plugin that lets you see the thumbnail in the node editor, just go over to your texture node editor, image editor, and drop this down here and choose your newest one. In this case, it was this one. Cool. So that's it for this particular stream, just because I got some stuff to do, and I believe that's probably information overload for anybody that was dropping in and out. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments of the various platforms that you're viewing this on, and feel free to shoot me a message with other stuff that you want to hear about in the future. And I'm going to be doing this a lot more often. So again, please check out my Patreon and Gumroad. Feel free to support me as I grow this sharing process and bring you guys into the fun world of messing around with AI at home. Hope to see you guys in the next one. Mike Flex out.